Hello, welcome back. This is day 12 of what you should know about Jesus. We're looking at the book of John, chapter 18, and we're going to first look at verse 1 through 4, and then we're going to jump all the way to 37. This is where Jesus is arrested. Some of their leaders are wanting to kill him for blasphemy. And then the sacrifice that needed to be done, and all of that process that Jesus needed to do. It is long, so we're just going to be looking at some of the points that I want to bring out here, which are found in verses 1 through 4. So let's go ahead and look at verse 1 first of chapter 18. When Jesus had spoken these words, he went out with his disciples over the brook Kidron, where there was a garden, which he and his disciples entered. So Jesus finished the prayer that we saw in verse 17, and Jesus and the disciples enter into a garden. By telling us that he entered into a garden, it lets us know that this was not a public garden. It wasn't just open for everyone to go. So it's kind of like this private garden, and Jesus likes this privacy of this garden. He likes going there, he likes to go pray there, and so it's kind of a personal thing there with the disciples. So he goes into this private little garden. Let's go to verse 2 to 3. And Judas, who betrayed him, also knew the place, for Jesus often met there with his disciples. Then Judas, having received a detachment of troops and officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, came there with lanterns, torches, and weapons. So Judas, one of the 12 disciples, one of the men who followed Jesus, decided to betray Jesus for a price. That price being the price of a slave. The value, the 30 pieces of silver, is hard to say what it would be worth today. But meaning that if it was the price of a slave, that there was then that worth, then that Jesus was really worth nothing, right? Being that he was and is God. And Judas brings with him men to this private location. And the soldiers were not Jewish, but Romans. And the Romans, again, were the ones who were controlling the area there. So they were in control during that time. The number of men that came to arrest Jesus is interesting, because it was somewhere around 200 men. 200 men coming to arrest one man. And they also bring with them torches and lanterns. So during the night, and needed them, right? Because they came during the night and needed them. If Jesus were to go off running and hiding, they needed the torches and the lanterns to look for Jesus if he would have run off and into hiding. And of course, the Roman soldiers carried their weapons. So mentioning it here means that they knew that Jesus had power and they needed protection. These 200 men, that quantity of men for the arrest of one person is insane, unthinkable. But they know who they're dealing with, and so they bring this quantity of men to arrest Jesus. Let's go on to verse 4. Jesus, therefore, knowing all things that would come upon him, went forward and said to them, "Whom are you seeking?" So Jesus does not run. He doesn't take off running when he sees them. He knows what he has to do. He knows what has to happen. So he goes ahead and says, "Who are you looking for?" if you ever find yourself with doubt or feeling of insecurity when approaching Jesus, should I not believe in him? What if this is not real? Whatever it is that you have in your heart and your mind, right? Then I would suggest that you bring that guard down, because he's God. These people knew it. 200 men came for him. They knew there was something up with this man, right? And he is God, perfect in all ways. He's loving. He doesn't let us down. And again, him giving me stuff, or not giving me stuff, I should say, doesn't mean that he doesn't love me. Doesn't mean that he's let me down because he doesn't give me what I want. We've talked already about what it is that he wants us to do, what we should do, and what we should ask of him is for him to help us to spread the good news. Anything that will get and him to expand his kingdom, not my own personal kingdom, not my little house. I'm putting in a lot of money into it. I want this house to go up in value. And not my own kingdom. This is about God. This is about him, his kingdom. And if we are following Jesus, if we call him our Lord, then he is our master. We are serving him, not ourselves. Let's go on to verse 5 and 6. Actually, I did not mention those in the very beginning, but let's go ahead and read those. What do they answer when he says, "Whom are you seeking?" So verse 5 says, they answered him, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus said to them, "I am he." And Judas, who betrayed him, also stood with them. Now when he said to them, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. So Jesus answers, but his answer is so special. A lot of the translations, as the one I have just read, when Jesus answers says that he said, "I am he." And a lot of the translations add that word "he" in there, in his response. And it makes sense to me, because as I think about when I answer a phone call and somebody calls for my name, right, I usually say, "Yes, this is he," right? Not just "this is," right? But we say, "This is he." But when Jesus answered, the correct phrase that he says, "I am." And that's very important. When he said those words, the men move back. When Jesus says, "I am," the men move back and they fall down. This isn't because there's a lot of people, 200 people, so they're like at a crowd and they start bumping into each other and they fall down, like a mosh pit or something like that. People pushing and shoving. People fall down like a wave of dominoes. The majority of these men that came were trained Roman soldiers. They weren't all these clumsy men, to fall down like a cartoon. What happened is that the power, they knew who they were up against. The power of his words, when he says, "I am," was made known. If we go back to the story of Moses and what happened there, right? We know that Jesus is God. He was at the very beginning, right? Before the creation. So when he has a moment with Moses and Moses finds himself with the burning bush, which you can find in Exodus 3 from 13 and 14, verse 13 and 14. It tells us there that when Moses is talking there and sees that interesting bush that's burning but never consumes, and he says, "Who do I say is sending me?" He gets a response from God and says, "Tell them that I am sent you." I am. sent you. I am. And Jesus here says, who are you looking for? Jesus of Nazareth, they said. He says, I am. So there he's stating he is God. And the power of those words send those men back and falling down to the ground. And finally, verse 37 of chapter 18. Verse 37 says, Pilate, because they had already arrested him, they took him to Pilate. Pilate therefore said to him, are you a king then? Jesus answered, you say rightly that I am a king. For this cause I was born, and for this cause I have come into the world, that I should bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice. And so in this part, Jesus is facing Pilate, which is a Roman governor. And Pilate also wants to know who this man is, or was, that was brought to him. After Pilate asks if Jesus is a king, Jesus tells him that it's true, it's so. Then Jesus shares with Pilate why he is there, why he has come to earth, right? His kingdom is not of this earth. And although he does not have a kingdom here on earth, he's saying, that doesn't mean that he's not a king. Right? So he came for the purpose of sharing the truth. And people followed the law that they had, but followed it incorrectly. So Jesus taught the people the true meaning of the law. He came to teach us the truth, to guide us to the truth. People had other gods that they followed. So Jesus taught them that there was only one God, as we have already talked about before. And remember, Jesus says it himself, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one goes to the Father except through him. So this is why Jesus came, to show us the way, to tell us what it is we should be doing. And it's important for us to continue to read our Bibles, attend a church services, right? So that we can learn more about Jesus and who he is. God bless you, and I'll see you on the next video.